Hey guys, welcome back to the Kampai Sugai podcast. My name is Gavin, and today we have another candidate here, a Republican candidate for U.S. Senate. He's a former U.S. Marine, 24 years, right?
Yeah, 23 years and 8 months to be exact. Yeah.
Okay.
Almost hit the 24.
That's a long time, though, for military.
Yeah, you know, it seemed like it at the time, but I've been retired for 13 years,
Uh-huh.
and I can't believe I've been retired that long. You know, they say the older you get, the faster time goes, so I'm definitely finding that true.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can't believe, for myself, you know, I've been out of high school because I graduated 2010, and it's 2022 right now, so it's been a long time, but at the same time, it feels like maybe just yesterday. So.
Right, yeah. Adult time is totally different than kid time, isn't it?
Yes. So former U.S. Marine, went up to E9. We could talk about that as well. That's a big honor, actually. Becoming an E9 Master Gunnery Sergeant. That's a big position, especially because my brother-in-law is E6. So
Is he a Marine?
No, Army.
Okay, yeah. That's great. Glad for his service.
Mm-hmm. And CEO and founder of PM-ProLearn. Of course, we can talk about that as well. But ladies and gentlemen, please give a round of applause for Mr. Tim Dalhouse.
Thank you. I appreciate it very much. So you know, it was an honor in the Marine Corps making E9, but more than an honor, it's just a big responsibility.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, as I was promoted through the ranks, every promotion, sure, there's a pay raise, there's more authority,
Mm-hmm.
and you know, maybe some respect goes along with that. But the biggest thing is, hey, you're now responsible for a lot more people.
Mm-hmm.
You're now responsible for a lot more government resources and a lot more leadership over Marines. A lot more people are looking to you for leadership. And
Mm-hmm.
how do we you know, go into these tough environments and you know, keep it all together and function as a team,
Mm-hmm.
and you know, get the job done and come home safely. And they're looking to you, so it's a lot of responsibility.
Mm-hmm.
There, definitely.
Yeah, definitely. And I think how was the testing for that? Because I know my brother-in-law, when he took for E6, he said it was one of the hardest things he had to do to test for.
Yeah, so the different branches have different promotion systems, and some of them, like you were mentioning, have a test. The Marine Corps doesn't, at least when I was in, may have changed in 13 years, but not that I'm aware of. But the Marine Corps doesn't promote based on testing results. It's performance-based. You know, once you reach a certain rank, there's in lower ranks, they look at physical fitness score, rifle marksmanship score, and things like this. But once you make to a certain rank in the Marine Corps, it becomes all about your performance evaluations. So you're graded by your senior people in different areas. And then
based on merits and performance.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep.
Nice.
And so the Marine Corps promotion boards don't look at a test score per se. They look at the entire Marine and the performance evaluations over time, and select the best Marine for the position based on those evaluations.
Do they ever do like I don't want to say like a character-based test to maybe they base some of their promotions based on like character-based leadership qualities from from somebody from a Marine?
Well, there's no written testing,
Mm-hmm.
but character is definitely something that is evaluated. You know, when I mentioned performance, to expand on that term, it's more than just performance. There's all these different areas, right? There, you get graded on your leadership. You do get graded on character. You get graded on things like integrity, things like judgment. And so there's all these factors that are pulled in, and you're evaluated on these different areas. And there are definitely character traits in there. The Marine Corps is very big on character. Matter of fact, they when I was in, they had a little card called the core values card.
Okay.
And you were supposed to carry that around at all times. If someone called you and says, hey, where's your core values card? You were supposed to be able to produce that and know what those are. And so the three core values of the Marines were honor, courage, and commitment. And you need to know what those were about. You needed to be able to explain your actions in a certain situation and how does your core values relate to the decision you just made or the actions you're taking in a situation. So the Marine Corps is very character oriented, but it's not a written test. right? It's based on observation by senior people who've been there and understand, a more mature view over time of what those character traits look like when they're lived out.
I like that because in a lot of ways, people forget about the character based part about leadership, and then, leadership is not just about the intelligence, knowing everything, knowing the ins and outs of procedures. That's part of it, but that kind of stuff can be taught and
Right.
be learned. So, but for character, it's character based stuff. It's very performance or experience. It comes with day to day living, So
Yeah,
I
that's
like
right.
that. Yeah.
So leadership in the Marine Corps, and then also in this field of project management that my company PM-ProLearn trains people how to do and get certified in the field of project management. There's leadership, obviously, in the Marines, but there's also leadership in all sorts of different fields. And project management has a lot of leadership. You're leading teams on accomplishing missions. And, a lot of people look at the concept of leadership and say, hey, leadership is being able to get people to do what you need them to do, right? I've got a team. I need them to accomplish a task. I need to lead them to be able to do that. And that's
Right.
true. But I like, for myself, and what I learned in the Marine Corps is that leadership's more than getting people to do what you need them to do. It's being able to get them to want to do what you need them to do. More about the personal motivation. How can I get this team or these individuals motivated to do what I need them to do, right? Because you get so much better work and a better outcome and better team-oriented environment when people understand and buy into the goals and they're doing the work and accomplishing the mission, not because they have to,
Right.
but because,
They're invested.
I'm invested. I want to see this same outcome that my leader wants me to see. So leadership is about getting people to buy into the mission and the reason for accomplishing that mission, whether the mission is to take that enemy objective if you're in the military, or whether it's to accomplish that project like the light rail project here in Hawaii, right? We have to get people to see the end vision and buy into what that is. And if your vision is messed up, and you're not going to be able to get people to buy into it. People look at the rail project, for example, here in Hawaii and say, wait a minute, what's going on over there? What's the vision of this thing? Because the date to complete that's been pushed out so many times, the budget's been, increased so many times, and so it's hard to get people to buy into something like that. So part of leadership is obviously, creating a good vision and being able to get people to buy into that vision.
And I think in a lot of ways that ties into the Hawaii elections, because there's a history about Hawaii citizens not voting. And I think in a lot of ways it's because a lot of them are not invested, or they don't feel like they're invested in the decisions that are made in Hawaii. And something like the rail, that's one thing where people maybe not invested in it, but then they're questioning why it's being built and, where's the money coming from? Or why is there so much money being put in this project that hasn't been built for over 10 years? You know what I mean?
Totally.
And that's why I feel like there's a lot of there's miscommunication, but there's also distrust in a lot of people these days. And then they end up not voting because they're just like, oh, doesn't matter who I vote for, something bad's gonna happen,
Right. And that's a sad commentary on where we're at. But, I think that some elected officials over a period of time have enjoyed the ignorance of the people, right? It gives government power if people don't know what's going on, where's the money coming from, where's it going to, why are we doing this or that? So, some folks that get into public office enjoy that because it gives them power. I get to make the decisions. I get to say where this money's going, and nobody can really question me about it because they don't understand it. And that's why we need to encourage people, and you're doing a great job here letting folks like me speak and say, look, we need to elect people to office up and down the ticket from the local council people all the way up to the the U.S. Senate, everybody in between. We need to look for people that want to or officials that want to listen to the people and also want to be transparent with the people and say, look, if I'm in office, you're going to know where I stand, you're going to know what I'm doing, and I'm going to always want to know where you, as the people I'm representing, where do you stand on issues, and what questions do you have? What can I answer for you? Because government works best when the people that elect the officials are heard by those officials, and that the officials remember, hey, I'm here not to be in power. I'm here to serve those people, right? And that's what I want to do, and what so many of my Republican, candidates, right, fellow candidates want to do as well. So I really want to encourage just voters to, to get out there and do it, get voting, and vote people in that are saying, hey, on the record, I want to listen to you. I want to be transparent. I want to serve you. I don't want to be in control and have power over you. I want to do things that are good for the people, not things that make me feel big or in some position of control, right? So
yeah, and in a lot of ways, like politics, I want to circle back to this, but a lot of people think that politics, there's a lot of misdirection in what people say. They may say something, but then actually it's another statement. It means something else. It's like a double-edged sword in a way.
right.
And but that's why like this election specifically, there's so many new candidates, but there's a lot of new candidates that want change here in Hawaii. And that's a great thing, because that means people are fed up, but also that also means that people are tired of the same old network or same old system, and they're doing something about it. But then the fact that we have to come to that point, that's a bad thing too.
Yes, I agree. But, I'm really super encouraged this year by just the sheer number of candidates that are running. These are people that, like, I've never run for public office before.
Yeah.
Never done this before. And there's so many other candidates that I've met that have told me the same thing. Yeah, I've never run for office, but I'm running for the council. I'm running for the House or the state, here at and I knew lieutenant governor and governor candidates that have never run for office.
All right.
But the fact that so many new candidates are jumping in here is an indicator that the people are starting to rise up and say, we need to get involved. And we don't need to be, just trusting that these people that have been in office forever are listening to us and being transparent with us. So just the sheer number of candidates that we have is an indicator that people are starting to wake up and say, we need to get involved. So I think that we're going to see not only just a bunch of new candidates, which we already see, but we're going to also see a lot of new voters. A lot of people, they may not be ready to run for office, but they're like, I need to vote this time. I've never voted before, but I'm going to do it this time. Or instead of just voting that straight Democrat Party ticket like I've always done and my family's always done, let me actually research the candidates and see what these people stand for and pick the right person, instead of just voting how we've always voted.
Right, based on name recognition or whatever commercial pops up first on the screen.
Right, right.
Filling out the ballot, mail-in ballot or something,
Right, exactly. But I've come across in just recent weeks, talking to a lot of people who knew me, and I asked them, well, how did you know me? How did you hear my name and my message of what I stand for? And I've had lots of people say, well, I got my ballot and I just started Googling the names on there. And I saw your website. I saw where you responded to, Civil Beat survey or Star Advertiser survey, and I read it. And so that's super encouraging, because people are starting to make more informed decisions about who they're voting for and why. And I think we need to encourage that. I mean, that's when democracy works.
Why do you think there hasn't been a lot of coverage with specifically the position you're running for? Because there's Brian Schatz, who's on the Democrat side, with I forgot the person's name that's running against him in the primary. But for the Republican candidates, there's 5 of you guys. So there hasn't been a lot of coverage. It's mainly been governor, maybe lieutenant governors. That's pretty much it. Yeah.
So there's several factors going on there, and of course I've got an opinion on that, and I don't have scientific research behind this, but several factors going on. So the first thing is that, the U.S. Senate is a federal office, and there's a lot of people that just don't understand what they do, right? Okay, I know we've got senators and representatives, but I've gotten a lot of questions from people at campaign events that ask me, hey, what are you running for? And I'm saying the United States Senate. And then they say, well, what district? What district are you representing? And I say, well, no, the U.S. senators don't have a district. Right. It's a statewide, race. And there's confusion over, well, wait, I thought you were separated by districts. And no, the House of Representatives is separated by districts. So there's maybe a little less information or knowledge about what, the federal government roles are. But I also think that, in this state, obviously the Democrats have been in, power for the last 60 years without a lot of challenge and opposition from the Republicans. So the last Republican senator we had was 1977. And so it's been a long time. That's a long time. The Democrats that have been in control of our government at the state and the federal level, representing Hawaii, there's no benefit for them to advertise the Senate race. Right?
Interesting.
They don't want anybody to know who Tim Dalhouse is. Right? They want to ignore me because they want no one to be interested in it. So the lack of interest is a control mechanism by the people that are currently there. Is one of the factors. Another factor is simply that so many issues that touch people's everyday life, like the lockdowns, right, here locally, where, the governor came up with an executive order that says, hey, I'll have to wear masks and, vaccine mandates and all this stuff. Those are state level issues that affect people's lives very quickly and very directly. And the federal office holders don't have direct control over that, right? So there's state issues and there's federal issues. So people are more directly impacted by state level issues in their minds.
Right, because it's currently affecting them.
It's currently affecting them, right? They can go out the door and immediately see the impact.
Right.
And so those people that are in the positions to make those local state level decisions are just going to be highlighted a little bit more by the media because that's what's on everybody's minds. But the federal level positions obviously are making decisions and legislation that impact the state just in broader and higher level areas. Like the Jones Act, for example, that restricts shipping to U.S. flag ships, U.S. built ships, and U.S. owned ships. So that's a federal level thing that does have an impact on the state of Hawaii, and the governor can't do anything about that. Right? Only the federal level. But people have less of an understanding of what federal issues affect their daily lives.
Right.
And one of the things that I want to do, though, is educate people on that. What can I, as a U.S. Senator, do to help your life, improve your life, improve your future for your keiki, and have that impact? And one of the things I want to do is work very closely as a U.S. Senator with the state government officials on what do you need from the federal government? What support, what funding, what legislation can we do at the federal level that will empower the state to be healthier economically, opportunity-wise, health-wise, because healthcare is a concern here.
Yeah.
So many things, but the federal government can support that. There's a lot of factors that go into the why, and I appreciate you giving me the opportunity to even talk about it because maybe this helps elevate the the recognition of the federal
the
office.
awareness.
The awareness, yeah.
Especially, it's kind of like the iceberg effect because when I talk about the iceberg effect, there's the stuff that people can see above the water, right? That tip of the iceberg, but then there's underneath it, there could be a whole bunch of different stuff.
That's correct.
People don't see.
That's a great analogy. Yeah. So the above the iceberg, what people see would be
lockdowns.
Yeah, and who can fix that, right? Who immediately can do that. But all that stuff under the surface of the water, you still need that taken care of,
right?
To make sure
constitutional rights. I mean, it goes right into our freedoms, as U.S. citizens. So that's everything underneath the water that people can see. So
absolutely.
But of course, it does take more research for people's part to actually understand and see what's going on a little bit more digging, but I think the digging is worth it in a way because then people are more aware of, okay, the lockdowns are happening because of this, You know what I mean? They understand why they see certain things at the tip of the iceberg.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, because issues change over time, like what are issues on the things that are issues on people's minds right now may fade and go away, and 4 years from now we have all new issues that come up, right? We don't know what's going to come up. So when we're voting for who to put in office, people that are going to be there for 2 years, for example, in the House of Representatives, or 4 years as a governor, or in my case, 6 years as a United States Senator. When you vote for me or Brian Schatz, you're voting for what's going to happen for the next 6 years. That's even longer than the President of the United States. A lot of people don't realize the you know, power that rests in senators simply because they're there so long, right? And they're able to be involved in so many decisions over time. So what I encourage people to do is when you're voting, sure, current issues are very important, but you also need to look at the character of the individual that you're voting for, because they're going to be there a long time, and you need to know, how is this person going to vote in the future, right? How are they going to react when a different situation comes up? You need to understand
on the federal level,
right? How does this person in the Senate, how is this senator going to think about problem solving, for example? What are the principles that they're going to operate on? Like, are they for big government, taxing, you know, people to death and spend? Are they for smaller government that empowers people, puts more money and buying power in their pockets? Are they for personal freedoms? Are they more for control of, you know, the civilian, the population? So, you know, understanding how the candidate thinks is so important. And are they going to listen to me? Are they going to listen to the people, or are they just going to go up there and make their own choices about things and never talk to us again for the next 6 years?
Right.
Right. So that's so important. And for me, I want to be very connected as much as I can to everyone in Hawaii, whether they vote for me or not. If I become senator, when I become senator, I am going to be as connected as I can with everyone in Hawaii. And I've got a couple plans on how to do that, such as a monthly just webinar where I'll pop onto Zoom, for example, and say, hey, whoever wants to join this thing across the state, you can join. Tim will talk about what's going on in the Senate, what current bills are up for consideration, my thinking on those things, and then you'll be able to respond in some way as to, you know, hey, what am I thinking about that as a person living in Hawaii, you know, with those decisions, being impacted by those decisions. So that's just one thing I want to do, and surveys and polls, and always answering people and staying very connected, because I you know, I have my opinions on things. We all do. And I'm obviously taking those opinions with me to Washington, D.C., to the Senate. But the most important opinion that I have is not Tim Dalhouse's opinion. It's the opinion of the people of Hawaii. So I want to represent the people of Hawaii. So I want everyone to know that yeah, I'm taking certain values and belief systems about how government ought to operate, but more than that, I want input from the people that I serve.
That's a good point, because like you were talking about earlier with the U.S. senators, it's one for each state. So for Hawaii, there's only, if you got elected, it would just be you. So
well, there are two senators.
Oh, two senators.
Yeah, so we have Brian Schatz and Mazie Hirono.
Oh, okay.
But they're both statewide.
But they're statewide.
They're not separated by districts. So when senators come up for re-election, the whole state votes on them just like the governor. Now, so Brian Schatz is up for re-election in 2022. Mazie Hirono comes up in 2024.
Oh, okay.
So they're staggered, so you're never rotating both of them out at the same time.
But still, I mean, that's two people that really represent
the whole state.
The whole state
at the federal government.
At the federal level.
Correct.
Yeah, that's really important, because if their thoughts, their ideas don't align with people that are voting for them or people that are not voting for them, then there's a disconnect there.
There's a big disconnect, right?
And they could be voting in a position where someone might go, wait, I didn't want to vote for that. Oh, but that's who's representing you, you know?
That's right.
So it's really important
very important
for people to go out and vote. So please register to vote.
That's right. and do your research.
And do your research.
And vote for people that you believe represent your value system and the principles that you want to see your elected officials represent. So it's more than just, I get asked all the time, what's your position on this issue, on that issue? And I answer people because they want and need to know. But I also want to say, what other questions do you have for me about me as a person, about, what I think is important? What do I value, right? Because those are things that are going to determine how I vote on future issues that neither me nor you or anybody else out there may foresee at this time, right? So, for example, in 2019, did anybody foresee COVID coming up? You couldn't have asked the governor, at that time, hey, what would you do in this instance? Because nobody was thinking about that. So you have to, be forward thinking, say, hey, how will this person act in these different scenarios? Do they believe in government, as the ultimate power, or government as an entity that serves the needs of the people?
Yeah, that factors into stimulus money. It factors into CARES Act funds. That it factors into a lot of things.
Yes.
But I want to circle back to, because you were talking about, you want to learn about who you're voting for. So some background about you. CEO and founder of PM-ProLearn. What is that? It's I kind of read up a little bit about it, but it does like workshops for like project management, people that are trying to get a certificate for project management.
Yes. So the basic concept is we train people to get professional certifications in the field of project management. So project management is in every industry. When you build a road or a house, that's a project. But also when you create a new software app on your iPhone, whoever's building that iPhone app, that was a project to build that. Improving processes, like, hey, we want to spend less money in a certain area of the government, and let's figure out how to do that. That's a project. So projects are anything that are temporary in nature and are supposed to have a unique outcome, right? It's a little different than an operation, where if you work at an operational business, like if you go to Walmart, they're doing operations there, right? They're stocking shelves, they're selling goods, and they do the same thing over and over and over. But projects have a more defined start and finish, and they usually have a budget, and they usually have a dedicated team of people that are there for that project, and then when it's done, they're gone. So we train people how to get certified in this professional skill set for that. And the business came from my time in the Marine Corps. 24 years, I served in a lot of different roles. Fixed airplanes, I was an avionics technician and avionics chief. I was actually a Marine Corps recruiter for 3 years, and I was an instructor, and I worked at headquarters Marine Corps for 3 years in manpower management.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So none of that was really what I thought was project management. But when I got out of the Marines and started, talking to employers, it became evident that the skill sets that I had developed in the military were relevant to projects. And I had employers asking me, hey, can you come manage these projects for us? We need you to get certified. So I went through the process myself to get certified as what's called a PMP, Project Management Professional. And it's wildly popular nowadays with employers in every industry. And so I got the certification and got into a career field after the Marines in project management. I worked at a couple of government contractors that were doing software development for our government agencies around Washington, D.C. I worked at the Food and Drug Administration for 3 years as a project manager there.
Okay.
And I worked with pharmaceutical companies that were trying to get drugs approved. And my area was animal medicine. So, trying to get drugs approved for cows and dogs and stuff like that. And the FDA does that too. So I was managing those drug approval projects. So a bunch of my friends from the military said, hey, Tim, how did you get this job at the Food and Drug Administration managing projects that have to do with animal pharmaceuticals? You're a retired Marine guy that used to bust your knuckles on airplanes. How did you do that? So I started mentoring other military people. Hey, here's how you do that. You got to get this PMP certification. Long story short, it turned into a business. So mentoring these other veterans turned into a business. And so it was my wife and I in 2017 that kicked that business off at our kitchen table. And I taught all the classes, and my wife did all the student enrollments, ordered the books and that sort of thing. And we started teaching. Well, we grew we were able to grow the business by bringing on some really smart people to
Yeah,
help.
you have a big team.
We're 26 or 27 employees now, I think, yeah. And so I don't teach anymore because the business has grown to the point that I'm just involved with overall running the business strategically. And I've got
Project management right there.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So, yeah. And my wife is actually our human resources manager. So she
Awesome.
makes sure all the taxes get paid, everybody gets their paycheck, and
Yeah.
all those HR laws, right? So you got to
Yeah.
be very, very careful to take care of people.
Mm-hmm.
So it just kind of grew, and we train about 200 to 300 students a month. Mostly the Department of Defense is our biggest client
Okay.
from all branches of the military. Because me being retired from the Marines and, I started mentoring military people,
Yeah.
that kind of became our niche market.
Mm-hmm.
And so we help the military, while they're active duty, learn how to manage projects more effectively and efficiently, get certified in that. And it helps military readiness, right? They're spending less money doing their projects. So it helps taxpayers. And it helps the military be more, efficient and ready for war. And then when those same military members get out of the military, they're certified in the field of project management, and they're able to go get jobs. And the field of project management pays really well. 6-figure salaries are the norm for project managers. So when these guys get out of the military with that certification, they're really set up.
Oh, they're set up for success.
They're set up for success. Yeah, it's not a golden ticket to you're definitely getting a job making,
Right.
$150,000, but it's
But the opportunity is there.
opportunities there.
Oh.
Yeah. So we pride ourselves on helping the military readiness
Transition.
and helping military veterans transition into good civilian careers.
Oh, that's awesome. That's an incredible service. Yeah, that's awesome.
Thank you. It's just one of those things that life circumstances led me to do, and God gave the opportunity to help a bunch of people, and so that's what we do. We just love helping people. We see the light bulb come on. Oh, wait, I can actually do things better, and I can get a great paying job as a civilian. There's a lot of civilian employers don't know the value that military people have because they don't understand what you did in the military, right? And a lot of military people don't know how to communicate their value to civilian employers. So there's a gap there, right? There's super qualified people, but they don't know how to tell employers what their value is, and employers don't know. So we bridge that gap. And if you get the PMP certification, it's a civilian global certification. It's recognized all over the world. If you get that certification, employers immediately know something about the value you bring. And so that's why it's a super powerful certification. That's what we started teaching, but now we also teach Agile Certified Practitioner and Lean Six Sigma process improvement certifications as well.
Oh, nice. So what do you think, well, we're talking about the military here. What do you think is the current issues surrounding active military members as well as veterans these days?
Yeah, so that is something that, some things always stay the same. There are always going to be challenges, and other things are ever changing. So the military's mission is to fight America's wars and win them, right? So the biggest challenge is for the military is staying relevant to the current threats that are in the world. Technology is always changing, and so we've got what we would consider our adversaries on the planet: Russia, China, North Korea, to name a few, some folks in the Middle East. And we've got to pay attention to what they're doing. What technology do they have? Do they have the ability to launch a hypersonic nuclear weapon and these sort of things? So big challenge for the military is staying relevant and prepared for emerging threats. That's huge, right? For the military members themselves, that's military, but then we talk about the actual military members. They're always facing the challenges of deployment, separation from family, financial strain associated with separation from family, and the pay is not that fantastic. Yeah, it's a decent paying job, but you're not going to be a millionaire in the military, right? So there's always, if I've got 4 kids and I'm an E3 or an E4, that's going to be a challenging thing. So there's a lot of those type of things that go on. But another challenge that's come up though for the military is the current administration the Biden administration and just some of the wokeism and socialist type of thinking that's in our current federal government has put the military in a position where, now we've got to almost be an experimental base for these new policies, right? We're now more concerned about training people on these woke ideas in the military even.
Okay.
And we see that all the time rather than war fighting, and so there's some distractions from the main goal of the military, because we have administration people that want to use the military as a test bed for their next new woke ideology. And so that's a huge challenge for those military folks. Talking about military veterans, transition out of the military is a tough thing. Let me tell you. So I did almost 24 years in, and I was in from 1985 to 2009. And so I came in the Marine Corps when I was 18, right out of high school. So my adult years were in the military. I was so immersed in that culture. And I held some jobs, when I was in high school, but I didn't hold a real adult job that I have to, pay bills
like a
off
9 to
of.
5. Yeah.
Right, yeah, and support a family off of. So I was always, in the military. When I got out, it's like being a fish out of water. I mean, all of a sudden you're in this totally different environment. People think differently about the world of work and decision making, and you really have to do a mindset shift getting out of the military. You're no longer in the military. You no longer have this very strict hierarchy of authority and stuff. Everything's a little bit more fluid, and so military veterans face a tough challenge when they transition out. That's always going to be there. We should be doing a lot better with that. Companies like mine focus on helping that, but the government, the Department of Defense, should be focusing more on preparing folks. I've told a lot of people, hey, I went to boot camp going into the Marine Corps, and they took me for 3 months at Parris Island, South Carolina, and indoctrinated me into this new culture of being a Marine. Well, when you get out, there's no boot camp going back into the civilian world, right? They just like, okay, you're done. Have a nice life. So, so there's no transition. There's no indoctrination back into what's
society.
Society. What's the civilian world about? So we need to do a better job at that from the Department of Defense standpoint. But from the government level, and things that I can definitely help with as a senator, is help focusing the Department of Defense on that. Helping veterans transition is huge. But healthcare is such a big deal, right? We've seen the Department of Veterans Affairs in the news for many years now about problems in VA healthcare and inefficiencies, and they've gotten better. They've definitely gotten better, but there's a long way to go. Long way to go. And I still hear stories, and I've heard it here in Hawaii, talking to folks that come out to different meet and greet events about challenges that their loved one has had with the Department of Veterans Affairs, and I'm just like, why? Why is that happening? These people need us to just pull out all the stops to take care of them. And so I want to champion that. Obviously, as a retired Marine, a veteran myself, I want to make sure those things are all well taken care of. And we're not wasting taxpayer dollars either. Efficiency is super important. You can't just pour money at any problem, and you can't pour money at the VA and say, hey, here's another $1 billion, go help veterans better.
Right.
No, you
need to be efficient with that.
Need to be efficient. Needs to be oversight on where's the money going. Is it being, is there waste that we
need a project manager.
You need a project manager. You need somebody that knows Lean Six Sigma process improvement, which is all about identifying waste and eliminating that. So you can save money and still get the job done.
That's an interesting, very interesting insight on that, because, there should be a lot more support there, and it's not just about dumping money somewhere and having them figure it out. Okay, what are we gonna do with this money? Then it could just go to waste, like $1 billion or something like that, and then people will probably complain and say, "Oh, what the heck? The government's doing something weird again." You know what I mean? But they're not set up for success, and I think that, that kind of goes back with leadership and understanding what's the right thing to do, in a situation like that. So, yeah, very interesting insight on
All right,
that.
thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Comes from many years of observing and being involved. I'm a veteran, and when I first got out of the Marine Corps, I was out of the Marine Corps for 3 months, and I had a medical emergency and had to have emergency surgery. And so I was a patient, and I went through this thing to actually save my life. When I got 3 months out of the Marine Corps, and something nobody saw coming. So I've been on that side of it as well. And was very thankful. Yeah, it was. But I was very thankful that the military retirement benefit was there to help, take care of all those bills and, get me taken care of. But, so I'm very, very in tune with veteran issues and getting those folks taken care of that deserve nothing except the absolute best care that we can give them. And it's not just physical as well. I mean, there's a lot of psychological issues that come with combat that so many of our veterans have seen. I mean, in my time in the Marine Corps, I served in several combat operations. We still have people that are in combat operations, even though you don't see it in the news every day now. There's still people that are in combat operations. There's a lot of stress there, a lot of psychological challenges that come from being in those environments. So we need to do a whole lot better there. A veteran suicide is a big thing, and veteran homelessness as well. And a lot of that's just related to the stress and psychological challenges that accompany serving in combat. So we need to really focus on that, not just physically taking care of them.
Right, the mental health side, because I just saw a article the other day about someone, I guess I forgot if they were a veteran or not, but they were in the military, and they, I guess, stabbed their wife. Their wife was someone who it was on the H3 actually over here on Oahu, but they stabbed them. The wife, of course, it said she cheated on him. She was pregnant with another man's baby. Just think I'm bringing this up, but I mean, it goes in line with the military and the mental health part about it after they get out of service, or even while they're in service too. There should be more support with that to get them acclimated into society and to, help them figure out that, that de-stressing part about it.
Absolutely. There's a lot of good programs out there that help with that. There needs to be more, and there needs to be more connection between different programs, because there's a lot of nonprofit organizations that are stepping up to the plate to fill in some of that need that's not being met by the VA. And so we really just need concerted efforts to kind of bring all those resources together and create a system of support as much as we can for veterans.
Right. All right, so I kind of want to go into some issues that at the federal level, there's been a lot of talks about it. So what's your stance on the Second Amendment? And you'd be the perfect person to talk about that, actually.
Yeah, so definitely in the Marines, you learn how to shoot weapons. You learn how to shoot them responsibly and handle them responsibly. I mean, you're pummeled with the safety rules of handling weapons. Treat every weapon as if it was loaded. Never point a weapon at anything you don't intend to shoot, and so on. So, as a Marine, that's ingrained in us. And the Second Amendment to the Constitution is in the Constitution, and it says that this right to keep and bear arms of the people shall not be infringed. And so I'm a constitutionalist. So I believe if the constitutionalist says something, we should do it. If it doesn't say something, then we don't, Yeah. And if you disagree with what the Constitution says, there is a process to get it changed, right? So the Constitution has been changed or amended multiple times in our history. So when the people say, hey, we disagree with something there, or we need to modify or add to, there's a process to do that. And right now, the Second Amendment is there, and it says the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. And so we shouldn't be infringing on it at any level of government, right? It's a constitutionally guaranteed right. And I think it's there for good reason. I actually had a conversation with a police officer. I live over on the Big Island, Kailua Kona. And I had a conversation with a police officer that was just in my neighborhood directing traffic. And I saw him and I said, hey, I'm going to go talk to him because I'm a candidate. I want to know, what law enforcement thinks.
Right.
So I went and talked to him. And I said, hey, there's just some changes, decision of the Supreme Court that changed some of the way that concealed carry is going to be looked at. And definitely going to affect Hawaii because Hawaii's got some strict rules around that. So I went and asked the police officer, hey, how do you feel about, the Supreme Court decision that kind of loosened up the concealed carry? And he said, yeah, I don't like, to not know when people have weapons and whatnot and so on and so forth. And I asked him, I said, well, let me ask you this question. Do you encounter criminals right now that are carrying concealed weapons? He goes, oh yeah, all the time. And I said, okay, so are the current laws against concealed weapons preventing those criminals from carrying concealed weapons? And he said, no. And I said, so if we allow people to carry concealed weapons, who's going to now be carrying them? Because the criminals are already doing it. And he said, well, the law-abiding people. And I said, you're right about that. I said, so now how do you feel about it? He goes, yeah, you make a good point. So I'm for it. So, it's just a common sense thing. And the police officer, realized that, hey, the bad guys already got guns.
Yeah.
So we can make all the laws.
And even if it was illegal, they're still going to find ways to get it.
They're still going to find a way to do it, right? So bad guys are always going to figure out ways to do bad things. Restricting law-abiding people is not going to prevent bad guys from doing bad things. So I support the Second Amendment because it's in the Constitution, but I also support it because it's common sense. People ought to be able to defend themselves, and being able to keep and bear arms is a way you do that. You can't, you dial 911, cool, that's great. But in the time you're waiting, for someone to come to your rescue, is there something you could do to save your life or the life of your family? You're going to do that, right?
Because not everybody knows how to do self-defense or something,
right?
And yeah, just to add to that too, with I think like with a lot of gun violence these days, it's an individual thing, because with people going into schools, or an armed shooter going into a school shooting up kids and teachers and faculty and stuff like that. It's an individual thing. They could have been someone that was, internally they could have been a good person before they decided to do that, and then they had mental health issues that resulted in them resorting to violence. And what people need to see is maybe that how they went to that point, how they became to that point of resorting to violence with using a firearm, rather than restricting the firearm altogether. Yeah, it's a weapon, it's a tool, but you can get a baseball bat and that could be a weapon as well, and that could be a tool. So are people going to go and say, oh, well, we're going to restrict baseball bats then? You know what I mean?
Sure. Yeah, we've seen in recent years that people have even weaponized their car, driven into crowds of people.
We're not going to restrict cars.
Down. Right, but we don't restrict car ownership.
Right.
So, it's some of those arguments to me don't make sense, right? But when I grew up, now I'm 55 years old. I graduated high school in 1985. So when I grew up, the world was totally different, right? I grew up out kind of in a rural area. Hunting was a big thing. And, I was one of the guys that drove a big truck to school every morning when I had a driver's license. And I had a shotgun and a gun rack in the back of my window because I had gone hunting the morning before I went to school. And all of my buddies had guns in their trucks. We didn't take them into school. We never shot the school up. The access to weapons then was so much greater, right? I mean, it was actually on the school grounds. They weren't illegal then, right? Those laws had not come into play. And I'm not saying that those laws are bad now. I mean, we definitely need, we need to make common sense, rules about things like what do we allow into our schools and whatnot in these areas. But what I'm saying is that access to weapons did not cause people in my generation, there were not a bunch of school shootings and we didn't see all these mass shootings. So it wasn't access to weapons, because I had tons of access to weapons and so did my friends. So what we see nowadays is, sure, there's access to weapons, but what has changed? Society, right? Society has changed over time, and some of that is because of the things that we've done in our schools. We've removed a lot of discipline from our schools. We're a me generation where, we want to let everybody do their own thing, and a lot of people in our society are struggling with sense of purpose, right? Why am I here? And when I don't feel included in a group, how do I deal with that? And we haven't we're not today, I don't think, equipping our young people with the skills to cope with basic life challenges. And so as they grow and become adults, these things become bigger problems. And like you mentioned, mental health, that, they result in violence sometimes, acting out. And I think that we need to look at, I'm not, I'm no a person with the answers on all that, but I think we need to research and say what has driven these people to make those choices to act violently.
Yeah, that's that whole iceberg effect, like I was saying before too. With Kiki growing up, they may have certain surface level problems, but then underneath that underneath the water, the surface, there's all these internal struggles that they're dealing with.
Right.
And then when they get older, then more of that iceberg is showing up. Then it comes to a point where the surface level thing is just violence, And I totally agree with you.
Yeah, I think it's become more normalized, right?
Yeah.
It's normalized in so many ways. Of course, you blame TV or video games or whatever, and I'm not blaming those. I'm just saying that over time, violence has become more the norm, and we see it on TV more. It's in the media, and more people that are in that position that feel like they need to act out are seeing, there's an option for me, and they're going for that option rather than some other option. So we need to give people better choices, right? Or better options, rather, and not make violence seem so
normalized,
right?
All right. I want to kind of switch gears a little bit to I want to talk about Brian Schatz, because that's someone
who's that guy?
Well, he's not here right now, but Brian Schatz actually made a statement. We're actually filming on August 2nd for people that want to know, but he made a statement yesterday about not being deterred from passing bills because Democrats are doing popular things, and this is in response to the Senate Republicans blocking a bill to help veterans exposed to burn pits. So, for yourself, what's your response to that?
Well, I would say that in November, when the midterm election results come in, we're going to see what's actually popular and what's not. So I think that what you're seeing in comments like that from Brian Schatz is people functioning in an echo chamber, not being connected with the people that they represent. And so I think that if Brian Schatz listened to the people of Hawaii that he represented and not so much special interest groups, then he would see that a lot of the things he considers to be popular are not quite as popular as he thinks. I think that's what's popular is being able to afford a house, being able to put food on your table, being able to put gas in your tank, and not having to make a decision whether I'm going to be able to put gas in my car or I'm going to, be eating ramen noodles or, a decent meal for my family. So those are things that our current leaders are out of touch with. They're living in an echo chamber, and they're surrounding themselves with people that nod their head up and down and say, and high five and say, yeah, that's what you should be doing. But that's not what we see happening here in Hawaii and happening on in states across the country. So I think that, a lot of those people that are in power are in an echo chamber, and they're not in tune with what's changed since they got there, right? So, but I think we're going to see what's popular. And I've been super encouraged. When I decided to run, the first thing you have to do is go on the elections website here in Hawaii and download the nomination paper package. And you got to go get signatures of registered voters that want to nominate you, right?
Okay.
So for the U.S. Senate, you're required to get 25 signatures of registered voters. And when I first saw that, I was like, man, this could be hard. And I actually got the papers, and I went out and got in my truck, getting ready to drive around, friends and neighbors, folks at church, and I prayed and I said, hey, God, if this is really what I'm supposed to be doing, please, bring those signatures to me easily. If it's not, then, put some hurdles in my way so I know this is not what I should be doing, right? So that was me. Well, I went around, and in 2 days, I got 38 signatures. I needed 25.
Wow.
But people were like, oh, I want to sign too.
Yeah.
And people were taking a paper and saying, hey, I'm going to take this home. I've got, a family coming over tonight. I'll get you like 10 signatures. And so people were signing left and right when they heard, oh, you're going to do something different than the current, administration that's in there. You're actually going to bring some different principles and values that will affect us in a positive way. And so people were just, super willing to sign the papers. And I was like, wow, there's a lot of people that want change here. And this is not as one-sided of a fight here in this state as a lot of people think, because people are starting to wake up and say, wait a minute, what we've been doing for the last 60 years in Hawaii,
it's not working.
It's not working. And so we got to start paying attention and picking different people. So I was able to get those signatures in 2 days, and I took them into the elections office there in Kona and handed them in. And she said, wait, you got all this in 2 days? I said, yes, ma'am. She goes, we never have anybody do it that fast. And I was like, well, I just told people who I was, what I stood for, my background, and they were like, yeah, we need a guy like you in office. And they were signing left and right. I only got turned down by one person. And it's not even somebody I knew. I just went in, and as soon as he heard that I was running as a Republican, he's like, nope, I'm a Democrat. I can't sign that. I was like, okay, I respect that, right? But because you're not going to get everybody, but only one out of the 39 people that were asked. I got 38 signatures. And so, yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and so I was very encouraged by that. And now since I've started down the campaign trail, talking to so many people, it's just evident that, people want change. Now, I do get a lot of questions about, some off-the-wall issues, because everybody's got their own little, thing that they're super concerned about. But there's around core things, cost of living, constitutional freedoms, freedom from government control and mandates and executive actions that have no oversight, and corruption, and deterioration of the rule of law. Those things we see in our state and we see around the United States, like the border is wide open, in the so Mexico, rule of law is just gone there. So around some very core issues, people that I'm meeting, and I'm not in an echo chamber, I'm going out into the community, not just Republican events. I've been to several mixed, bag events where, hey, we've got Democrat and Republican candidates here, but I keep hearing people are kind of, united around, we need to fix these things. We can't continue the way that we're going because our keiki don't have a future here in Hawaii. I've come across just in the last week 2 young families who are leaving Hawaii, who grew up here, right, born and raised, their families here, and they're leaving the islands. I'm like, why are you leaving? Right, this place is beautiful, right? We've had such a wonderful place to live. And they're like, look, we can't afford, we're working 3 jobs and we're living in, a place that we don't know how we'll ever afford to buy a place, right? It's like beyond our comprehension to be able to afford to buy here. And we don't see a future for our keiki. We need to get them in an environment where they've got an ability to achieve that American dream, right? Of getting a job, raising a family, having financial security, and home ownership, and just being able to be happy in life without struggling every single day for the basics. So people are focused around. That's what's popular. That's what's important. So I don't think the current folks that are in office that are making those statements know what they're talking about.
Well, another popular thing is definitely families being able to afford things. So I want to talk about tax reforms and what kind of tax policies you want to put into place as well. Some of the current ones that Biden supports are earned income tax credits as well as child tax credits, but he also is pushing for minimum federal wage of $15 an hour. So in a way, do you think that's countering some of these tax credits and, increasing the federal, or just increasing the minimum wage in general? I mean, over here it's increasing to $18. Do you think
$18 an hour.
Do you think that's something that is kind of undoing some of those tax reforms, those tax credits?
Yeah, so I think that we are overtaxed in general at the state level and at the federal level. The reason that we're overtaxed is because government has grown so big. And we've got such bureaucracy throwing around, when you hear on the news, hey, Congress just, voted a bill to spend another $10 billion on this or whatever.
Yeah.
It's like this number that nobody can really, okay, yeah, that's an imaginary number. We can't
a lot
even,
of zeros.
That's right. We can't even think about that much money. I don't even know where that's coming from. You know? But what's happening in reality is that the government is out of control with spending. And even the people that are in Congress voting these bills through to spend all this money, they don't even know where the money's coming from. They just know that if I tack enough zeros onto this and vote for it, somebody's going to be happy that I'm shoveling money their direction and they're going to vote for me. The problem is our government, people making these decisions, they either don't understand or don't care about the interconnectedness of those decisions.
No accountability.
No accountability. And they don't think about, I'm going to shovel a bunch of money at this problem right now, but what's the impact of spending all that money on this? Where's that going to come from?
Who's it going to hurt?
So who's it going to hurt, right? It's got to come from somewhere. And so we need to cut taxes because the buying power of families, and we talked about this already in Hawaii, people working multiple jobs just to make ends meet. The buying power of a paycheck has dwindled due to many reasons. Taxes is one of the huge ones. We need to cut taxes so that people are able to retain more of the hard-earned money that they worked for, right? Instead of giving it to the government.
Yeah.
But you can't just cut taxes without cutting what else? Spending, right? If you're going to continue to spend money, you have to continue to tax and even increase it. And that's what we see going on with the current administration and the folks in Congress. So cutting taxes needs to be done, but you have to also bring down spending. So we need to start looking at being more efficient. Where are we wasting money?
Right.
So our government over many years has created all these programs with good intent to help people, but they've grown to the point that people have become dependent on the government, and they see that as, oh, this is how I pay my bills. I get into this government program, and so now I become dependent on it. And the problem with that is now these people are actually becoming, in a way, enslaved to the federal government because that program is controlling their ability to live, and they have to stay on that program because they've kind of, been programmed to do that. So the government is using a bunch of programs to make people dependent on it, and what that does is it gives the government power, right? So we can't just go and cut programs left and right and say, hey, we're going to cut spending out of this program and that program without looking at the impacts. So I'm for decreasing the size of government, reducing spending, reducing taxes so the taxpayers have more money in their pocket and buying power, but we have to do it smart, right? We have to make sure that people that are currently dependent on different government programs are taken care of, first of all, and that we create good decisions that take care of those people while shrinking the size of government. It's not an overnight thing. It has to be done over time, and we have to do it efficiently because there's a ton of waste in there, right? So we need to cut spending, we need to cut taxes, but we also need to look at how are people going to be impacted, as we do that. We need to move. Changes. But the reason that people have become dependent on those programs is because the economy has been decimated by a lot of decisions, and so they have to work 3 jobs because that paycheck that they were getting doesn't mean the same thing as it used to. You mentioned the so when we talk about tax credits, the Biden administration, those are, in my view, are used as gimmicks to get people to not be too concerned about the spending that the government's going to do, because they're like, oh, he's going to give me a tax credit. That's cool. But then they don't look at, okay, well, if you're giving me a tax credit, but you're spending more money, where's that money coming from? So where it's coming from is in other taxes on other people and other businesses around. Now, people don't immediately get concerned about that because like, oh, it's not me, I got a tax cut. But when you raise taxes on, for example, business, or you raise taxes on...
Right. People are not seeing that.
They're not seeing it because when it costs a business more, in taxes to do the work, what do? They hire less people, right? Because they don't have as much money to put in their workforce. Or they pass the increased taxes on to consumers in the prices that they pay. So while you might have got a tax cut, now you're going to the grocery store and paying more for a jug of milk and a dozen eggs because the tax cuts were put on somebody else.
Right.
The taxes were just moved.
It was just shifted somewhere else.
And increased in the process, right? Not just moved, but we took it off of you, put it on somebody else, and increased it on them, and they're going to pass it back to you in the prices you pay at the store. It's the same thing with the minimum wage, right? I'm all about, as I've talked about, families being able to achieve what we call the American dream, right? And afford things without working 3 jobs. But raising the minimum wage to these insane levels, like $18 an hour, once you do that, that $18 an hour that sounds great now, 5 years from now, that $18 an hour is not going to be worth $18 anymore. Because what happens is employers cannot afford to pay those increased wages without changing something. And again, those changes can be cutting the number of people that they have. They're employing less people, right? So people may lose jobs over that. Some businesses will actually go out of business. Small, what we consider, local mom and pop operations that are operating on thin profit margins already, they're just going to say, throw their hands up, say, we can't afford to pay people that, and they're going to close down. And then there goes, jobs right there where, people used to have one.
Right.
And or they're going to pass it on and increase prices to the consumer. So if you're making $18 an hour, that sounds cool. But then when you go to the store to buy something and it costs, way more than it used to, you're $18. We should be looking at buying power of families and paychecks rather than arbitrary numbers of minimum wage. How can we increase the buying power of families? And that is a result of creating a robust economy where market conditions are able to lower prices and increase opportunity for jobs for folks and lower taxes so that the paycheck you get, while it may be $15 an hour instead of $18 an hour, that $15 is worth even more than the $18 an hour. It's all interconnected, right? And we can't just make these one-off decisions to say, let's do this with taxes, let's do this with minimum wage, without looking at how it impacts, things over time.
Finding ways to circulate the economy.
That's right.
To make it stronger.
Correct.
Right?
That's right.
Rather than dumping money inefficiently and then causing a rift in that circulation. There's a blockage. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. The economy is based on, like you said, it's a river that basically flows in a circle. That money's got to move around, and everybody's got to get their piece of it so they can pay their bills and take care of their family stuff. If you slow that down, then there's less and less for people to have. We have to keep the economy going,
right?
And we have to incentivize business to grow jobs and for them to make profits that they
be able to
afford.
thrive.
Right, and they can afford to pay good wages. The government forcing, things on businesses never turns out well. Never turns out well. It's got to be a partnership, right? The government needs to understand how business works, and business needs to understand their piece in the economy that the government is, very concerned to keep flowing. So it's a partnership, and it's not a us and them type of thing. So we have to work together between government officials and business people. And I think one of the huge problems you have in government, so many people are there, career politicians.
Yeah.
They never started a business. You know, they were never in a position.
And they don't know what these other business owners are dealing with.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So it's difficult. You know what I mean, for business owners, because they're trying to say something when they're struggling, but there's people already passing bills that they're like, I don't agree with this, you know, and then they end up shutting down their business, right? And then the economy, there's still a blockage there. So then they're trying to figure out, okay, what do we do to help families out? Well, strengthen the economy. There's a way of strengthening it, and you have great ideas for that, you know.
Yeah, so a lot of that came from operating a business, right?
Uh-huh.
So I started 4 businesses since I retired from the Marine Corps. Like any entrepreneur knows, the first one or couple may not work. So
Yeah.
I have a lot of lessons learned
Right.
from those businesses. And I learned a lot about this concept of profit and loss, and that businesses don't operate if you've got a loss, right? You have to figure out you'll shut down. A business I can't pay my own bills. I can't make the payroll. So you have to close. So you have to figure out how to make the business profitable. And when you're able to do that, you're able to hire more people. You know, like I said, we grew my business, PM-ProLearn, with the 4th one that I started. The other 3 did okay, but, you know, there were some challenges and we had to shut them down. But PM-ProLearn benefited from those ones that didn't go quite so well, because I said, oh, okay, I'm going to do it different next time. And so when we started PM-ProLearn, we were a little bit more prepared, and we're able to grow the business. So I learned that if I grow the business, I'm able to employ more people. And if I'm able to employ more people, I'm able to grow the business more, and I can employ more people, and so forth. The biggest, the thing I'm most happy about of having started a business is the jobs that I created. I'm so happy I can go and say there are now 26 families that have good income because I was able to figure out and work with you know, smart people to make our business work. And there's now 26 families that have really good paying jobs from that. And the more that we can incentivize that, the better everyone is, because when business thrives and people have more jobs and better paying jobs, they put more money into the economy.
Right. They circulate it.
They circulate it. They buy more things from a restaurant, from, you know, different goods and services, and the whole thing
Increase the
works.
market power.
That's right. It just works. So that experience is something that I, you know, want to take to the U.S. Senate, and we're talking about how do we fix the economy. Hey, I know how this works at the ground level of someone who's trying to struggle and make a business work, and how government action impacts that in positive or negative ways. So
Awesome.
yeah, excited about that.
Well, Tim, I have a couple more questions. Why do you think you're the right candidate for the U.S. Senator position?
Well, you know, I struggled with this when I first was thinking about running for Senate, because you always, you know, think about, hey, what is my next move? Is this the right thing?
Right.
But I am absolutely the right candidate for this Senate race because of the background that we've been talking about so far. I'm a retired U.S. Marine combat veteran, so I've got the experience of having defended our country, been in very stressful, austere conditions, gone out there and done what our country needed to do to defend us, and I've led people in those environments, very diverse environments. So I'm a retired Marine combat veteran. I'm a small business entrepreneur and owner who's gone through the things that we mentioned. That I know so many people here in Hawaii, for example, are, you know, doing that. I try to buy local every single time I can, because I know what they're going through, right? And I want to help them with that knowledge. I worked in the government, in the federal government, from a regulatory agency at the Food and Drug Administration. So I've been inside a regulatory agency and interacted actually with Congress on some of the things that were going at the FDA. We had to report certain things to Congress. And I've worked in private industry supporting the government. So around Washington, D.C. I've also got a very diverse experience of living in multiple places. Right? I've got this Southern accent. I grew up in North Carolina, and I left North Carolina a long time ago, but the accent didn't leave. So it comes with me. But I've lived in multiple states, multiple countries. Came to Hawaii the first time in 2004, loved it, said I'm going to live there when the Marine Corps stops moving me all over the planet and make that my home. And so I bring this very, very diverse background of military, business, working in and for the government, project management, and living and seeing different cultures and how things work in different places. How does, governments are totally different places on the planet, and some are in really a shambles. So we're headed that way if we don't make some change. But I bring all that vast knowledge. But what I also bring is conservative values of wanting to listen to and care for the people and lower the cost of living, increase their opportunities to have a good future for their family. And I bring the value of listening to people and not being on my lofty throne in Washington, D.C., doing things that I think are popular, right? Without listening to the people and finding out what are they really concerned about. So I'm ready for change. So many people around me are ready for change. I'm a man of action. When I'm in the United States Senate, I'm not going in there and sitting on the back row. I'm going to take a front center seat on getting things accomplished for the people of Hawaii and the people all over this country.
Well, Tim, I got to say thank you for joining me on this podcast, and thank you for sharing about your life and your background as well as your ideas. Very progressive, honestly. I mean, they're conservative, but they're common sense things. You know what I mean? And I think that's what we're missing these days. The common sense factors in how we should be doing with decision making. So how can people reach out to you for more information?
Yeah, I appreciate that. So our website is real simple. It's just my name.com. So timdalhouse.com. Funny last name, spelled Dalhouse. So timdalhouse.com. You can also find us on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, and love to connect with people through all those different mediums.
Of course. Thank you. And for people out there, if you enjoyed this video, please remember to like, comment, and subscribe to Kampai Sugai podcast.
Right,
and of course, I'm going to put your links as well in the description of the video.
Thank you.
Yeah, we were just talking about Instagram today, or IG, and you're asking me, what is IG? Instagram. So
there you go.
There you go. Yeah.
Very cool.
And best of luck to you. I mean, like I was telling you, we were talking off camera before, but about like the exposure for yourself as well as other candidates that are running for the U.S. Senator position that's going on. But there's not a lot of coverage, and I'm glad I could give you this opportunity to bring more coverage to the race.
So much appreciated.
Yeah, definitely.
Can I throw just one little thing in?
Of course.
Here on the end. So I'm glad you brought that up, because this is a fight that I'm in. This is a big, huge challenge. If you look, we mentioned earlier that it hasn't had a Republican senator, and I'm a Republican with conservative values in the United States Senate representing Hawaii since 1977.
Right.
So the opponent, Brian Schatz, thinks he's untouchable. Civil Beat just published an article the other day that, hey, there's no competition for Brian Schatz. Has he got a job for life up there? He's got $4 million in his campaign fund. Now, Tim Dalhouse does not have $4 million in my campaign fund. And what does money do in a campaign? Well, money drives getting the message out. Radio, TV, print advertising, all these things. You have to have money to drive that. So anytime campaigns have a lot of money, they've got an advantage because they can drive that message across, paid media. So we've got a serious challenge on our hands. But I'm the guy that can take him out of that seat because I'm a serious candidate with a serious team. We brought on a professional strategy team, and you may not have seen this from a lot of Republican challengers in the past. We've got a professional strategy team that's helped other Republican candidates up and down the ticket and around the country, called TLC Political. That's helping figure out, okay, how do how do we get the message out? What's the right message to wake people up to vote this guy out? I've got a professional campaign manager who's managed multiple campaigns and knows what he's doing, and he teaches me stuff every single day, you know, about how do you run a good professional campaign and get the word out. And we're spending a lot of money on this campaign. So in the primary, we've spent $250,000 getting the message out, print, radio advertising, doing some polling, because we didn't just want to go out there and say, hey, we know what you need there, people of Hawaii. We actually ran some polls and asked, what are your concerns? Because we want to make sure that we're addressing those concerns in the campaign. So we've spent $250,000, and it was out of my pocket. And so I did that for a couple of reasons. Number one, get the campaign going. Number two, to just show people that I'm not doing this for special interest or money that's coming from somewhere else outside the state trying to get me elected. I am doing this because it's the right thing to do, but we need help. Rolling into the general election, we're going to need to come up with more funding. We need volunteers. So when people go to that website, timdalhouse.com, if they're interested in helping make positive change for Hawaii and you know, creating an environment where we can have future for our keiki, we need donations. We need to go against that $4 million campaign fund. We need volunteers to do grassroots efforts all across the state. So I just want to let folks know that you are needed. If you like what you hear and you see about Tim Dalhouse and my desire to do great things for the people of Hawaii, please get involved. We definitely need the help.
Of course, definitely. Tim, at the end of the show, we usually do a kampai. Here's to you for good luck on your campaign and good luck to the unpopular things that you're pushing, but they're going to be very popular very soon. So,
Good.
kampai.
Kampai.